Good morning, St. Thomas Dubois. I'm Peggy Hotchkiss, and I'm delighted to have been invited to preach to you today. Today's gospel passage is about welcoming others. Scholars often equate the term little ones with Jesus' disciples, whom he sent out without belt or purse or an extra pair of sandals. The disciples were entirely dependent upon the hospitality of others. Jesus said that when people welcomed the impoverished itinerant preachers, when they gave them even a cup of cold water, they were welcoming Christ. I think that welcoming the little ones means more. I think it means to welcome all of God's children. We all are the little ones. There's a wonderful Celtic rune of hospitality that goes, "We saw a stranger yesterday. We put food in the eating place, drink in the drinking place, music in the listening place. And with the sacred name of the triune God, he blessed us and our house, our cattle, and our dear ones. As the lark says in her song, often, often, often goes the Christ in the stranger's guise." Last August, the Snowy Range Deanery held a gathering at St. Barnabas Church, Saratoga. I crafted an evening liturgy based on the welcome service from the Iona Abbey in Scotland. The rune of hospitality that I just read was part of the service. I stood in front of the altar rail to lead the service. No sooner had I concluded reading this rune than a stranger walked in. She looked a bit confused to find a service in progress, so I beckoned her to come in and join us, and she did. When the service ended, she gratefully accepted our dinner invitation. She shared with us that she had been searching for a quiet place to do some quilting while her husband and his band were performing for a wedding reception in town. She also said that she had been raised an Episcopalian, but had not darkened the door of a church since her son's death 20 years earlier. She and I both agreed that the Spirit had led her to us. As she visited with people from our deanery, I could sense the healing that was taking place. I felt the love of Christ entering her and beginning to heal her broken heart. We certainly were blessed by her presence, and I pray that she was equally blessed by that unplanned visit. But do strangers always show up at our church door? Research on declining church attendance indicates they do not. If we want to welcome God's children, we often must go outside our walls and meet people where they are. One blessing of the COVID quarantine is that our churches were not really closed. They were deployed. When the COVID relief checks from the Foundation for the Episcopal Diocese of Wyoming arrived, many churches asked their members to listen to the needs of the community. Some churches spent several weeks learning about their community's needs and discerning how best to distribute the funds. Listening to community members was the key activity here. How can we minister to God's children? How can we best meet their needs if we do not listen to them to learn what those needs are and how they think those needs can be met? In a time of racial unrest, listening to God's children, especially the least, the lost, the marginalized, the persecuted, is vitally important. For this week's Diocesan Leaders Lunch, the Reverend Roxanne Jimerson Friday, a Shoshone priest who lives and ministers on the Wind River Reservation, shared her experiences with racism. When we asked how we can begin the work of healing, she said that work has already begun. After years of being told how to solve their problems, the Shoshone and Arapaho people have been empowered by our diocese and by other agencies to seek ways to solve their own problems. Rather than being the victims of toxic charity, the Shoshones and Arapahos are relying on native wisdom and traditional practices to become more resilient and to improve their mental and physical health. Our diocese is listening to the native people and supporting them as they desire. If we truly are to welcome and to show hospitality to the little ones, to the least of these, my brothers and sisters, as Jesus has said, we must listen to them. Yes, it is important that we give them a cup of cold water, but how can we ensure that they will have water tomorrow if we do not listen to them? This is especially important in parts of Africa and in places like the Navajo Nation, where over 30% of households lack running water and a large percentage of homes lack electricity. We must listen to God's children. We must be willing to walk beside them, to help them meet their needs. And their needs often are the most basic of survival needs, such as water, food, and shelter. Many of God's children today are crying the words of the psalmist, "How long, O Lord, will you turn your face from me?" If we listen to those who are crying, and if we open our hearts to truly hear what they are saying, we can see how best to welcome them, how to minister to their needs, be it a cup of cold water or a water supply. We can see how to be an answer to their prayer of, "How long, O Lord?" By listening to and partnering with them, we can help turn the words of their lament to the final joyful words of today's psalm. I will sing to the Lord, for he has dealt with me richly. I will praise the name of the Lord Most High. Amen.